Jess Garland, multidisciplinary artist, musician, nonprofit founder, and community advocate from Dallas.
I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York, I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast.
So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up?
This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast, we chat with Jess Garland, a talented musician, filmmaker, and nonprofit founder. Jess plays guitar, harp, bass, and banjo and creates community programs that empower underserved youth through music, education, and the arts. She shares her journey of breaking barriers, fostering inclusivity, and giving back to Dallas communities through innovative projects. This episode highlights the power of art and activism to inspire change and elevate diverse voices in Dallas. And it's a fun chat. Here she is. The Dallas Famous Podcast is supported by the Mullen & Mullen Music Project. The Music Project was created by Mullen & Mullen Injury Law Firm to champion the independent music scene in North Texas. Welcome back to Dallas Famous. We're at the Deep Ellum Community Center. I've got Jess Garland. She's a musician. She's a philanthropist.
Nonprofit founder.
There you go, nonprofit founder. You know, ChatGPT gave me all these suggestions, and I'm like, I don't know which is the best one. So I'm glad you said that. Educator too, community advocate, call it, like
organizer, whatever.
Yeah, just throw all these labels out.
They're not wrong. I just feel more comfortable saying other things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it wasn't even like, what is Jess? It was more like, what do I call someone who does all these things, which you do a lot of cool things. And
yes.
It's like, in fact, I'm sure there's people like you, but I don't know any. Yeah. No,
That's
it's cool.
a compliment.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's like when you came on the radar, it was like, oh, like, I mean, are you more a musician? Are you more of a community advocate? Like, what do you, like, when you think about yourself, like, how do you think about it?
I'm just an artist.
Okay. All right.
When I typically will say multi-instrumentalist and multidisciplinary just because I am a filmmaker as well, too.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about all of
Yeah.
that.
I feel like maybe one of the last times you interviewed me, I think we talked about harp and soul. I think we did.
We did, but I didn't interview you, so I wasn't paying as close attention to the details. Well, no, I mean, when I was producing a podcast, I was worried about, like, is the volume good?
Right.
Like, the content wasn't as much what I was focusing on.
That's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Not that I wasn't paying attention.
I know, yeah. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I mean, I can't remember yesterday, so there's that.
Right. Because I couldn't tell you what year that was either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, obviously we go back. So yeah, you play guitar, you play harp, you sing.
Yes.
Do you play anything else?
I do.
What else?
I play bass. I play banjo.
Banjo? I don't think I knew that.
Yes.
I've definitely never seen you play banjo.
Yes, I have not really played it on stage. It could happen next week at the Black Americana Fest in New Orleans. We'll see what happens.
Well, tell me about that.
Yeah, so I just slid down in there, buddy.
Yeah.
I next week for the Black Americana Fest in New Orleans, I will be playing with the Suffers, which is a headlining band.
Oh, okay.
You know, I play with them.
Yeah.
I'll be playing harp with them, but I'll also be playing with AJ Haynes from the Seratones.
Okay.
I'll be playing harp with her as well too. But the Black Banjo Reclamation Project will be there as well too. And my nonprofit has been partnering up with them for some classes here at the Oak Cliff Cultural Center.
Swan Strings.
Swan Strings, yes. And we've been doing that for a few months now. But it's a cohort that's this part virtual and part in person. And so yeah, the cohort will be, or part of the cohort will be at the festival next week. So if I can get me a banjo on backline, I may be able to, hop in there.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
I don't know why, but this question just hit my head. How challenging is it to get the harp working in conjunction with a live band as far as like the miking it up and everything?
It's not that hard. It can be. I can understand why it could be, it can be challenging at sometimes, especially depending on which band, that I'm playing with. But the Suffers, I played with them, I guess, at least a handful of times at this point, and so we were just kind of locked in. But also, Cam works with a lot of different types of musicians, and so it's really not that complicated. But I have a contact mic or a transducer or just a quarter inch that I attach to the mic to the harp that goes right into like a DI. So it's not it's not too complicated,
Right.
But when it comes to like tuning and things like that and outside gigs and being able to hear yourself on stage and all of that stuff, that can kind of be challenging sometimes,
Yeah. Are you like writing your own parts? Are you working with Cam or the bands to come up with the parts?
That's a great question. Look at you. I pretty much write my own parts, you know what I
Okay.
mean? Well, because, even historically as a harpist, there isn't just a lot of material that's out there for us, Even some classical music composers that I know don't always understand harp very well. And so they'll have a thought in their mind, but don't think about what the harpist actually has to do to achieve what they're looking for, So they're not thinking about changing the pedals if it's an orchestral harp, or if, like, for me, I'm a lever harpist, and thinking about the levers that I may have to like change maybe in between a song if I'm changing key or something like that. So yeah, it can. I pretty much do my thing,
Right.
like
right.
on all of these songs. Yeah, I
That's
may
cool.
try to like obviously, call and respond with something that Cam may be singing, or I typically a lot of times may follow like the pianist, but I'll get locked into pretty much anybody that's that I'm on stage with, and may jump around to maybe different types of parts. But
Is
I
it
pretty much
like
do my own
really
thing.
different to do a rock band versus like an orchestra harp?
Yes. And no, but yes. But no, yeah, I mean, obviously rock can have like just a completely different structure than a classical song,
Sure. Yeah.
But to me, like, music can all just kind of be melted into one thing. And so my approach can be different, but it's a lot of it can be some of the same things, you know.
All right. Well, as I do on this podcast, I bounce around. So let's go back to the beginning.
Yes.
So you're a Dallas kid, right? You grew up
I
here?
am.
Yeah.
You know this. Come
Yeah.
on.
Well, I
Dallas born and
everybody
raised.
else doesn't know. I'm trying to explain.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
catching it up. Yes, I know. I mean,
Yeah, I'm like,
my notes tell me I don't even have to. In fact, I don't even know why you're here. Like, I can just do this by myself with the notes. No, I'm just kidding. So when you were a kid, like, what was the first thing about music that made you go, huh, that's different than just listening to, like, I want to be part of it?
well, one of my first memories of music is just being in, there was a piano in both of my grandmother's homes. And and I don't know if a lot of generations are still growing up in the same way that I did, where you just have something like that that's just accessible, where there's just a piano in the house. And so my dad's mom, she had a piano in her home because her father played. So my great grandfather played piano. I didn't know him, but she pretty much that just kind of passed on to her, and then she didn't really play either. She actually was a ballet dancer. And was one of the first Black Kilgore Rangerettes as well too. So
Cool.
so they were trying to force me into dance. Dances to this day is really still not my thing. I have an appreciation for it, but so a piano was accessible. And I just remember picking out the notes to lean on me on the piano, which was fairly easy because it's just like a C scale up and down, I didn't really know that at the time, but I just remember being kind of just like having this connection of like, oh, wow, I was able to like figure this song out,
Sure.
So, yeah.
And then, so then, was that like how you got that started? You started just messing on the piano more and more?
Yeah, piano. And I don't play keys at all right now.
Yeah,
I
but
can kind of like, fake play
it's a
some
good
block chords. I mean,
foundation,
it
though.
is,
Yeah.
and it does have a lot of similarities to the harp. So that was my first introduction. And then, but I've always had been attracted to the guitar. But that didn't come until later on. I was a band nerd first. I wanted to play saxophone. But my parents got me a clarinet instead, because I think they kind of knew that I would venture off into other instruments, or other things. And so there's like, oh, let's get you a clarinet and let's just see how you do with this, and then we can do saxophone.
Was it like less expensive? I don't understand why they picked that over the other.
Don't really know, actually. And I don't even, now that I think about it, I don't even know if it was a band teacher thing as well too. You know, when the
like
band
we
is
need
like
another clarinet player.
Yes,
Yeah,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? Where it was just kind of like you know, how a student wants to play one thing and they're like, we need this, you know what I mean? So it could have been that as well too. But grateful enough to, you know, my parents was able to, you know, buy a clarinet. You know, I had a nice one. I still have that same clarinet. And I was probably one of the few students who had their own instrument, especially something like that. But anyway, so it was just, I just kind of remember that it going that way in terms of, you know, see how you do with the clarinet, you know, and then you can graduate later on to the saxophone.
Did learning clarinet, like, I'm trying to think how that fits in with the other instruments you do, or the way you view other, like, how did that fit in, like, to like your transition?
I don't know. Like, I always like to kind of like just describe myself as like, there's this like famous image just called like 3 Egyptian women musicians, you know, and there's like the first Egyptian woman is playing like a flute or like a woodwind like instrument, and the second one is like a lute or a guitar like instrument, and the last image is a woman playing the harp, you know. And I just think it's interesting that I kind of went in that order.
Right? Yeah.
It was not necessarily intentional, but maybe unintentionally it was intentional, you know what I mean? Just kind of just following what I was called to, you know. I still love woodwinds to this day. You know, I love woodwinds. I don't really play at all anymore. Sometimes I do, just for like good breath work or whatever, you know, or just to see if I can still do something, you know.
Right.
Brass is the only thing I've never done, you know. Yeah.
Did you get into singing at this point too, or?
I feel like singing is such a natural thing for a person to do, whether if you feel like you're doing it in key or not, you know what I mean? It's just
Right.
like your voice is the first instrument that you actually have, you know?
Sure.
So just always have done that, you know, but I've never like, I maybe like sang in school plays and stuff like that, you know, but I was like not in choir or anything like that. I wasn't that kid that grew up playing or singing in church or anything like that. I was just really just a band nerd, you know?
Right.
And just kind of singing around the house kind of thing.
Did you do marching band?
I did do marching band.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did a little marching band myself.
Yes.
There's some coordination involved, not a lot,
Yeah.
but some, yeah.
But no, I got really into, I've always been a guitar lover, but just kind of got like really obsessed with it in high school. And it took like, you know, NDRE coming out, and especially Lauryn Hill's Unplugged album. Like I always tell people I've been playing guitar as long as that album came out.
Okay.
Because that's when I was like, okay, I'm doing this, you know? And so that's been like over 20 years.
Was
at
that
this
one of those
point.
things where you're like listening to and you're like, okay, I've got to be able to play those songs myself? Is that kind of part of the inspiration?
I just was like, I wasn't even really thinking about like I want to learn that song. It was just more so like just seeing someone that looked like Lauryn Hill playing that instrument,
see.
you know?
Okay.
Because I don't think you get a lot of representation of black women playing the guitar,
no,
you know? Like
not
we've
much.
got Jimmy, we got Prince, and Sheila E. was one of my first like, you know, inspirations, you know? But I don't really remember seeing her with the guitar, even though she can play very well. But
Yeah.
it was like, you know, she was a percussionist when I was growing up, you know? It's
Yeah.
kind of what I remember seeing.
too,
and
yeah.
of course, we had Wendy and Lisa, but, you know, like that was just women, representation, you know. But to see Lauryn Hill doing it meant a lot to me because I was already like a fan from the Fugees and all of that stuff.
Sure.
And I still think to this day that album is still one of the most revolutionary albums that ever came out because you haven't seen a lot of people still do that to this day. And something that's what can seem as simple as just singing and rapping and playing the guitar, I still haven't seen a lot of people do that
Yeah,
to this
no,
day.
you're
It was,
right.
you know,
I'll take more of it.
yes.
Sure.
Yes.
And so, okay, so you did band. Like, when did you start? Did you play in bands, like rock type bands, or is that not something you really?
So I'm a classical guitarist is my background.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I was interested in the guitar, but I didn't really start playing for real until like my freshman year of college. And I signed up, you know, as a course to take, and I didn't know it was going to be classical, but because of to answer your earlier question, I could read music because of clarinet. I could read the guitar music very well, so I picked it up very easily just because of being able to read it.
Sure.
And so, yeah, classical guitar is my background, and but that kind of prevented me from being able to kind of jam out,
Were you, because you're just your mindset? Or?
All I knew at that time was to read music,
I see. Okay.
And I mean, I could kind of maybe pick out a few notes and things like, I could do something, but it wasn't like I could really do as much as I can now, and it's just because I heavily relied on reading. I play classical music, and that's what I could read. It wasn't like something I was necessarily listening to all the time, but it was definitely something that I was performing and playing.
Right. When did the harp come in?
The harp came in way later. And I was at an organic farm in Balk Springs, and there was a woman playing the harp, and she invited me to sit down and play, which I thought was odd. But I did it anyway,
Right.
because I've always been attracted to the instrument as well, too. My grandmother that I was mentioning earlier, who had the piano in her home, she always talked about she wanted a harp, she just wanted one in the house, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of like how she had the piano accessible. And so, but a woman was playing it at a farm. She asked me to sit down and play, and I did. And it just kind of felt really natural, to be honest. I felt a lot more free, even though the harp can be associated with classical music. A lot of times I felt like I could shed all of the classical music training that I had as a guitarist to kind of like approach this instrument in a more organic, ancestral way, even, I just did what felt natural to do. And I applied some of my classical guitar playing like styles, like fingering styles, to the harp. And so I think that was why it was easier to pick up. But it is harder in that you don't have a fretboard, But I don't know.
I can't conceive how to play a harp. I haven't actually tried. Yeah.
People say that all the time, and I'm just like, I don't know what to really say to them.
Yeah, well, obviously it was your thing. I mean, and then you went further because like you do pedals and effects on your harp.
I
and stuff.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just because that kind of came from, I don't know, I was inspired by some musicians, like watching them do like kind of like their one woman or one man band kind of thing. But that kind of came from just like from, coming up in the scene and doing some performances, and sometimes folks are not reliable, you know what I mean? And so like I didn't really know like what to really do when it's like we rehearse something one way, but one or two musicians wouldn't show up, and I'm like, okay, now what do I do,
Yeah.
And so I would do a lot of improvising, but it's hard to do that if you're like doing a gig and it's like, a performance is like 2 hours or something, and it's like, and you're trying to do something that was not rehearsed to do, and the harp is I don't have a classical background with that at all, so it's not like I had like this long list of classical repertoire or anything like that. Like I was like in a trio essentially, where we had planned to do something, so I was just like, I just would do a lot of those performances just improvising,
That is wild.
I know.
Of all your instruments, that's the one that you kind of just go by off the hip almost.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. It was the one that allowed me to be able to kind of just like look at music a different way. You can also see music a different way too. It's kind of like the piano where you can see all your notes. Like a lot of people feel like guitar is hard because you can't, your notes are not laid out for you like how a piano is,
Right. Yeah.
For me, it's different, but I get why people see it that way. But no, yeah, harp is the one that I'm just like I'm my truest self,
Sure. And so, I mean, and you do solo performances. Do you put a band together behind the harp at this point when you do that?
Sometimes it depends on the budget.
Always, right?
It depends on the budget. I mean, my thing is being a one-woman band, and I can still do that with a band or a string quartet or something like that. And I have done that, but it's only like select performances where I do that. And again, it just depends on the budget, So forgive me, but there is a stereotype with orchestral players are a little bit snobby, or so do you have run-ins because you're not doing classical harp with like players that you try to get, or yeah. Not all the time, but I mean, you're right, it's like an elitist community,
Yeah.
Which is funny to me because if you can take the harp out of the classical music world, then you got, folks from different backgrounds is just like doing folk music, you know what I mean? Just doing what they want to do on the instrument. It doesn't have to be tied to classical music. That's just that's just something that was kind of like organized or structured, just kind of like how the music industry is,
Right.
And so yeah, I do get that, but I do have a lot of classical musicians that love what I'm doing because it is adjacent, you know what I mean? Like I'm kind of like a one-woman orchestra, if you will, you know? And so
I mean, is that freeing maybe for them sometimes to step out of that rigid music
if they
world?
can, if they can approach it in the way that I did in terms of trying to have like a different way of doing music outside of what's on the paper, like I've met some classical musicians that love what I'm doing and they love to play with me. And they don't do what I do at all, and it gives them an opportunity to be able to stretch what they know,
Right.
Because that's the thing. It's like, I don't have to do it your way to be good at this, or to be respected, or recognized or get performance opportunities. Because that's another thing too. Like sometimes people get upset and it's like, well, she's not playing whatever, whatever it is, Mozart. I don't know. What I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing out something random. And I'm not, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that I can't. I just don't want to.
Yeah. Well,
I'm an artist, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it gives you more unique opportunities, I would think, to perform in different spaces.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And it also gives me an opportunity, like as a composer and producer, to be able to like live produce songs, you know what I mean? Where I can pick up the guitar. Like for example, I've got a medley of Marvin Gaye songs that I do now. And it's like, I can, play the guitar part on the loop pedal, and then put that down. I mean, I could put like 3 different tracks down of guitar and then maybe even do like a bass line because, bringing all those instruments, I'm not going to bring a bass. So I may play the bass line on, guitar and or harp,
Sure.
And then the rest, like I'll play the melody all over with the harp, And so, yeah, I just...
Wait, so I'm trying to visualize this. So you're like laying loop tracks down with the guitar, then you put it down, then pick up the harp? Is that
sometimes, or the other way around?
Okay.
Sometimes it's all guitar. Sometimes it's all harp.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's guitar first, then the harp. In terms of like what tracks I'm, sometimes it's both.
Sure.
It just depends on whatever my approach is to the song. You know. But yeah, some classical musicians really appreciate it because they feel like it's a way for them to learn more too. I love when they see it as like a learning opportunity because again, it doesn't have to be the way that they were taught, but then there are some that are just like, they're not with it at all, and just are, very resistant, to it, which is fine by me. I don't care.
I mean, you have your space. You don't need all that.
Exactly. You know, and I think some people are actually upset about that, because again, I think they feel like, because again, it's elitism. They feel like you have to do this thing to get to whatever opportunities,
Yeah.
And people will get upset when they realize that that's not what I'm doing. And I always try to like make sure people know what I'm doing when they're hiring me too, And it's fine. I can cut out the loops and the effects and things, but I just want to make sure people know what they're asking for when they hire me for.
But I mean, it sounds like you've had your experiences where you played in an orchestra setting, and you were fine with that, and that's just what it was, and you didn't feel constrained in that at those times.
Well, the orchestra that I play with, we play hip hop and R&B.
Oh,
yeah. Like but I mean, we do classical music as well too. Don't get me wrong, but but we do a lot of like contemporary, hip hop and R&B music. And so I feel extremely comfortable with them. It's pretty much an all-black orchestra. I feel great, It's not the same as like being in an institution like the Dallas Symphony Orchestra,
right.
Which I have played with some of those musicians, you know?
But not at the actual orchestra where you're dealing with all those rules.
Say that again.
Well, like, I mean, have you performed with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, for example?
I played with some of those musicians, the ones that wanted to. You know what I mean?
Right.
I've done I have produced Dallas Symphony Orchestra events where I'm performing with DSL musicians that were open to what I was doing.
Right. It just was certain ones.
Yes. Some of them didn't understand it, and some of them did. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And that was not just musicians. That could be folks that were just within that institution, like people that were in administration that didn't really get what was happening, you know?
Right.
So, yeah.
Well,
But things like that are happening outside of Dallas all the time, you know?
Yeah, I'm
it's not a
sure.
foreign thing, you know?
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's just like when you think about like the symphony orchestra and how, I mean, again, I haven't spent a lot of time there, so, but it just like I have this rigid, like we only want to do things that were written 500 years ago.
Yeah,
and blah,
exactly.
blah, blah, you know?
It is. You know, they don't even play a lot of. I know so many composers, you know, classical composers at that, Black classical composers, and I don't. There are some orchestras that are playing some of their music, like Jesse Montgomery, for example, or even Carlos Simon, you know, just to name a couple of Black classical composers that I know. But it should be a lot more than that. You know, these are people that are living, you know,
Right.
that this is what they do, you know, for a living. And
Yeah.
so I do feel like it should be more of an emphasis on that versus the people who are been long gone.
Well,
you
I feel
know?
like it's the same argument of like, are you a tribute band or are you original band?
Oh my God.
You know?
You know, it's like, give us something else, you know, please,
We've
you know.
heard this stuff many times.
And there is a space for it. I
Sure,
get it. You know
yeah.
what I mean? But for the whole season to be to something that doesn't even benefit a living composer is wild to me.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I don't think that's their
But there are
priority.
institutions that do that. You know,
Okay.
there are people like me who have their own nonprofit organizations and their own institutions where they are implementing what we don't typically see.
Sure. What a great transition. Nonprofits. I love it. You're like doing my work for me.
Yeah.
When, I mean, you're doing all this music and like, I mean, to be fair, a lot of artists, I mean, selfish is one way to put it, but another way to put it is just like they're just focused on their stuff. So at what point did you start saying, I'm going to give back? Was it intentional? Like, how did you start in that space?
I will say that I remember when Erykah Badu was doing stuff at the Forest Theater. I was not over there when she was doing some of the organizing that she was doing, but I do remember that she had a nonprofit organization that I believe was called Blind. And I remember driving by and I remember seeing like, you know, on the marquee, like drum lessons here or whatever. So I've always just like felt like it was such a cool thing. I remember driving by South Dallas Cultural Center and like seeing artists doing things like that and just being kind of attracted to that, you know, because I was teaching. So I grew up near White Rock, and so I was teaching in that area, and then I went to SMU, so I was teaching in like the Park Cities areas, you know, and so just was kind of craving something a little bit more, you know. And I had gotten an opportunity to teach at a nonprofit called La Rondalla that was led by Dennis Gonzalez, the late, great Dennis Gonzalez, my bandmates and mentor. And I was teaching at La Rondalla, teaching just like some beginner guitar classes, you know, and it kind of turned into like a bigger thing. And the first grant that I have ever written was to try to contribute to the nonprofit that I was working for, because I just really admired what he was doing in the community and what Stefan and Aaron Gonzalez, Dennis's sons, were doing in the community. And so, the first grant that I ever received, like Dennis was all for it, but for whatever reason, like some of the board members that he had was not for me using that money for La Rondalla. They felt like there was like a legal counsel that was just like, oh, this is a conflict of interest. And I was just like, I'm not about to, you know, give this money back, you know, to the city, essentially, you know.
Right.
And because at that time I was going through a lot of like personal stuff, and I was like, I need to figure this out. Like, I really want to do this, because I was gonna like pretty much just like direct that program that I was gonna, you know, that I was given the money for. And so I was like, okay, well, now what do? I had to basically find my own guitars, my own space, my own students to make it happen. And in 2017 was when I kind of first started teaching my own. I mean, I've had like, you know, like my own like music studio in terms of like teaching private lessons. Been doing that for over, like, again, I've been teaching almost as long as I've been playing, you know. And so, but 2017 is when I kind of really started my first like not-for-profit like music program that started out as just kind of like a summer program. And then in 2018, I had kind of did another one in Oak Cliff, but that was more like a spring semester kind of thing. And at that point, I realized, oh, this is a thing. And La Rondalla ended up kind of dissolving around that time. And so Dennis donated over 20 guitars to me to kind of continue the mission, you know. So
Right. Was that when Swan Strings started, or is that?
that's pretty much when we got started.
Yeah.
We were already doing things, but I wasn't like a 501c3 at that time. But no, yeah, once I became that, you know, and La Rondalla was dissolving, Dennis just donated the guitars to me, you know, so that I can keep the mission going.
Right. And what is that mission? Like, well, like, what does it look like now?
It's expanded. I mean, we started out as just like guitar lessons, you know, and just free, you know, music education. For me, it's always been about just like a safe space for the kids and a way for them to express themselves. I know you don't want to really like do politics or whatever, but I will say, you know, the first time Trump was elected into office, I was teaching at La Rondalla, and at La Rondalla, I was teaching, I maybe had like 15 or 20 kids in my class, and all coming from Spanish-speaking family households that were legit afraid about their grandparents or their parents, you know, if they were going to have to be, you know, sent back somewhere else, you know. And we used the guitar to kind of like be able to express ourselves and to kind of process those feelings, you know. And so that was a defining moment for me of realizing, okay, this is more than just simple expression in terms of like, this is, you know, I'm feeling down today and I'm going to use it was more so like, this is directly related to what's happening, you know, in our country, you know. And music has always been that way, you know. Music has always been, I mean, there's tons of protest songs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
About what's going on. And so, but that was a very defining moment of me of like, oh, wow, like I'm a member of this community. They're looking for me to answer and say something about what's going on. And the best thing that I could do was to just kind of encourage them to, you know, to first of all, just validate what's happening, you know, because it's a reality, you know. But then just to kind of like find our way to kind of push through each day, because La Rondalla was Monday through Friday, by just playing the guitar, you know. That was a moment of realizing, okay, this is something more than what I, you know.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I mean, one, it's something for the kids to do and to focus on, but like, you know, yeah, no, I can see how that's pretty impactful for them to have something like, it's not just I'm learning how to play guitar.
Yeah.
You know, it's
more than just like even just internal growth, you know, just learning more about yourself, because I always say that, you know. But it was just something that was directly related to something that's impacting their lives, you know, and they were looking for me for an answer, you know.
Yeah.
And so I will never forget that day, you know. And so so it became more important, you know, at that time, and it made me start thinking more about like representation and thinking about representation in different ways, because again, I've been teaching in the White Rock area and Park Cities, and I'm like teaching kids who are being forced to, you know, play musical instruments, and but representation mattered in those communities as well too, because they had never seen anyone that looked like me. They didn't expect me to be the one pulling up to teach them a guitar lesson, you know what I mean? Because sometimes, you know, people are like kind of in their own bubble in Park Cities, you know, and maybe their only representation of someone that looks like me is something on TV, you know, and it may not be something positive, you know, like it's like it's just a negative narrative about Black people, to be quite honest, you know. So they're like, oh, there's this nice young Black woman, you know, from SMU coming to teach us classical guitar, you know what I mean?
Right. Oh, that's funny. I didn't think about that. I mean, but when Swan Strings, it's like now it's. I mean, you do like South Dallas too. I mean, like it's like who's allowed to be in this program? Who's it open to?
Everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's to anyone who doesn't have access. You want to take a lesson? You know, we're about to have one here at Deep Ellum Community Center.
Yeah. Actually, we've got to finish before it
I know.
starts. We're getting there.
We getting there.
We're getting there. Let's talk a little bit about your filmmaking. What have you? What I don't. I mean, I must know, but my memory is not great.
I'll be honest. Like I know it's hard for people to keep up with all the things that I'm doing. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But my latest project is called Behind the Strings: Amplifying Black Feminism and Guitar Culture. And I just had a screening at Future Front Festival in Austin during Labor Day weekend.
Oh, it's already out.
Oh, it's out.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have it like available online for people to view yet, just because I'm going through the film festival circuit.
Right.
I actually was talking to Kenny about doing a screening here.
Well, also I had Simon Pruitt on from The Observer, and he just bought a theater that holds 30 people, and it's just for screenings like that. So
wow.
I can connect you guys.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And so it's an 11-minute short documentary, and it's my third film. This is the first one that I'm in, I got into filmmaking by just wanting to have community conversations. My first film was called Their Lives Mattered, and it was a dialogue honoring stolen lives due to Dallas law enforcement. That was a big one. We had our screening at Texas Theater. We had a Q&A with Mothers Against Police Brutality and a couple of police officers. It was very intense,
Yeah.
But that film, which I don't have that out for viewing as well yet, I do intend to eventually put that out there. But it was just more so like to just have it at Texas Theater to have this community discussion, because Botham Jean had just was killed at that time. And, I do feel like as an artist, it's important to address what's happening, in the world, And so it started that way. I wanted an opportunity also to kind of like to just get more into my composing bag as well too. And we did basically a live score to the film.
Oh, yeah. Fun. No, that's cool.
Yeah, which is part of the reason why I haven't put it out, because I haven't I need to
get the music lined up. Yeah, you can't really go to everyone's house and play live, right?
Right, yeah. It was just what we had intended to do at that time, And we went to specific neighborhoods where people had been killed in Dallas by law enforcement to see if people in the community had even knew about this person,
Huh.
And so it went really well. It was about 20 minutes. And then my second film was Harp and Soul. And I presented that pretty much during the pandemic with Aurora Festival. And that was pretty much addressing environmental racism in Dallas, and I also just kind of wanted to uplift Black women in the community who are constantly talking about what's happening and nobody's ever listening, And my friend Marsha Jackson, who runs Southern Sector Rising, was directly impacted by an illegal dump that was in her backyard. And she reached out to me, and a friend reached out to me to speak on the matter, because again, now I'm just kind of like, it's, people are calling on artists to directly address what's happening in our communities. And so I reached out to the mayor and city council directly, and then I also made an art project of it to kind of humanize the people in those communities in Joppy and in Floral Farms in Dallas. And so now I have, and I did, I composed the music for that as well too, and that is you can view that on YouTube.
Okay.
Harp and Soul.
Okay, we'll put a link to that.
Yes, and then but now I have Behind the Strings, which originally started as a book idea, which is still happening. I have a publisher. I don't think I've told anybody this yet, so you heard it here first.
Breaking news. I like it.
But it's a music education book and a lookbook, because if you think about any music store that you've ever gone to, you probably won't see anybody that looks like me in the book. There's the same guy,
Uh-huh.
And I do think it sends a message, to because a lot of people, even here at this class, a lot of people was like, I've never thought this was for us, just because of how, but it's how communities, it's how things are shaped. The industry, the music industry is a part of that as well too.
Sure.
By only,
Absolutely.
for example, even country music, people don't think, even Black people don't think country music is a part of our DNA, you know what I mean? But that's because of only certain people have been pushed out in the media and in the industry, so that when someone like Beyonce comes out, then people are like, what is going on?
Right.
So yeah, it's basically a book, a music education book, but it provides a lot more representation than any other book that I've seen from over 20 years of teaching.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, it started out as a book idea, And again, I have a publisher now, L Flat Books, and but I ended up creating a film to kind of talk a little about the story. It doesn't really talk about the book, but it just kind of gets into how communities and culture is, created, and preserved as well too. And education is one of the best ways to kind of do that. I'm doing that in the classroom every day, you
Right.
know, because it's not just playing guitar. We're having like, real conversations, and I'm
cool.
passing down information to like the next generation or to just someone who can pass it on to someone else,
Right, right. It made me think of a question. Some of your orchestral music, have you ever thought about, or have you put that out where other people can like perform that, like the sheet music?
That is such a good question too. Not yet. That is something that that I do think about, And I'm a performance artist, like a lot of people do. And I love this, want to be able to like, pull up Spotify, which, boo Spotify.
Yeah, well, that's the conversation, sure.
To be able to listen to artists, and that's great, and I do intend to put out more music. But my experiences they're live, you know what I mean? And for example, I did a performance at the Wiley Theater a couple of years back, debuting my laser harp, and I have like all these compositions.
Laser harp?
Yes.
What is a laser harp?
Yes. Shout out to Eric Trich. But he is a new media artist, but visual artist. And this is an idea that him and I've had forever. And he does a lot of like 3D prints art now. And he basically 3D printed me a harp, And
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That is cool.
And I did a performance at the Wiley Theater. And I had all black musicians on stage. And it was important for me to do this on Flora Street because, oh my God, the arts district is a Freeman's town, you know what I mean? Just like how Deep Ellum is, It was a community of black people. And the arts district was not created until the year I was born, 1984, which is when the Dallas Museum of Art opened, And so to me, I think it's just really interesting when you push out a group of people and you build all these institutions that's supposed to be for the people, but the people are not really getting those opportunities on stage.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I had folks like Gino Young on stage with me, who's a product of Booker T, but, he's very well much ingrained within the Dallas,
Yeah,
music
very
scene
respected,
here.
definitely.
Yes. And I've had, Brian Sargent was
Oh,
on
yeah,
stage with me.
she was on our show, yeah.
Yes. And so, yeah, who is also a product of Booker T, but also kind of came up through one of the symphony orchestra programs. And so she's seen the experiences. She had a particular experience as a kid up into an adult. And so we just had something to say, and it was just more so about just more than representation, more so about equity. I wanted to show that this is what this can look like on this stage. We can have, genreless music, you know what I mean? It can be classical because we were very much so that as well too. And then they can all be black folks, you know what I'm saying? Like that the only time I've ever seen something that looked like what we did was when Andre came to town, and it was at APAC, and did his New Blue Sun tour performance,
Right.
I don't see a lot of what we did on that street, you know. And I'm not saying it never happens, but
Right. It's not
You can probably
publicized.
it's not publicized, or you can probably get any program book from any of these institutions, and you're probably not going to see it, for any of these seasons, So
Right. Maybe finish on this, but so I guess I didn't realize that. So you don't have a lot of recordings out there?
So some of my first recordings is with the Sunshine Village Band, which is like I call us like the Spree cousins, because a lot of the Spree folks, or basically started the Sunshine Village Band. So I did a couple of albums with them, and after that, I'm thinking through things. Oh, the Truth to Power Project. Like I
Right.
was like on the title track for that. I'm forgetting a lot of stuff, to be quite honest. I'm just like thinking of a couple of things. But then
Sure.
I have my solo things out. I have my single Glow that came out in 2020 during the pandemic, which
Yeah.
everybody thought it was about COVID. It wasn't, you know. And then last year I did put out my second single, I Tried, Live Again. Shout out to JT and Kiera for additional production and mixing and mastering for that song. And I got some stuff in the vault, you know what I'm
All
saying?
right. Yeah.
I'm working with them, you know, to put out some more things. And so yeah.
What I mean, we're wrapping it up, but what else do you have coming up that you want to tell people about, or that people can either see or participate, or?
There's so many projects and things that I'm working on right now. The film is like what I'm really working on. I'm already working on like the next, you know, phase of that. The book, you know, is coming out. Planning for February next year for the book, a release for that. So December, more music. This year, February next year, book. Still will be screening the film. One of the other projects that I'm really excited about that I'm working on right now. So all this initiative is basically under the title of the book and the film, Behind the Strings. So I've been doing sustainability projects as well too. And I've got a few partners that I'm working with on a gourd planting project where we're going to turn into like basically do banjo bills later on.
Okay.
And so at West Dallas Multipurpose Center, we're doing something over there at that community garden. That's my way of giving back to that community as well too, who also has like dealt with a lot of environmental racism, still dealing with a lot of that to this day, you know, just a lot of just things that's happening in that community that's impacting the health of the people that live over there. And then I'm also doing this project at Bonton Farms as well, too.
Oh, okay.
So I'm providing, so at West Dallas Multipurpose Center, we're doing senior guitar classes, but also we're doing a dulcimer over there too. But then we have the gourd planting project that we're doing. But then at Bonton, we're going to be doing the same thing where we're going to be providing guitar lessons, but also planting gourd seeds. As of next week, to be honest, I'm a little bit worried about like getting caught with our first like freeze, you know, but we're planning to work around that. If it doesn't work out, then we'll replant in the spring.
I mean, I guess the
After our
last
last
question is,
freeze.
when do you sleep?
Oh my God.
No, you got a lot of stuff going on. It's cool. It's cool.
This question is always just like, I never really know how to answer it because people assume sometimes that I don't think this is what you're doing, but people think that I don't take very good care of myself. You know what I'm saying? Or that I'm not like sleeping. Yeah. But I mean, all of this stuff really drives me. You know what I mean? Like sure. I'm super passionate about it, you know? That is my duty as an artist, you know? That's what I do, you know? And so I have my own schedule, you know? I've been working for myself since, the pandemic, essentially, since 2020. Mm-hmm. And I get to make my own schedule, you know? So I don't have a typical 9 to 5. So I find ways to get in my power naps or whatever you want to call them, you know?
Right.
You know, or, you know, I can
sure.
sleep in sometimes when maybe others can't, you know? Or, you know, because I'm a night owl. I stay up really late and do a lot of work, so.
Yeah. I was just kind of teasing, but I mean,
know, yeah. I didn't think that you meant it that way at all.
Yeah. I mean, Jess, Dallas is very lucky to have you. Your community is lucky to have you. I'm grateful that you came on the show. We'll have links to all the stuff that people can try to get involved in. If you've inspired people, I'm sure there's things you can help them get off the ground and, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm glad you came down.
No, yes, thank you for having me. I know it's a long time coming. I think I was supposed to be the first one.
You were first season. I asked you.
Yeah, I was supposed to be, and I don't know, you know, all the things that I'm mentioning just kind of, you know, got in the way.
It works out because you have so much going on, and people get to see your beautiful face in the video version we just started. So all of that, you know.
Yes. So thank you for hitting my line, you know, not only just texting, but calling to say, hey.
Yeah, making it happen.
Yes, I appreciate it.
All right. Hey, thanks again.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to thank my guest, Jess Garland. We'll have links to her music, her programs, and her films in the show notes. Thank you to the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record here. Theme song, Unstoppable by Celine Narala, and the outro is The Place to Be by Electric Ants. Thanks again to the Mullen & Mullen Music Project for their support. Like, subscribe, and share the podcast, and we'll see you next week.